How's it going, everyone? My name is DrapPep. Welcome back to another installment of this series. I recently just watched A Quiet Place. Not like for the first time or anything like that. I've seen it before. I think I even saw it in theaters when it first came out. And as I'm watching it, the only thought that kept going through my mind was, yeah, I'm not going to survive that. There's no way I'm going to survive the monsters from A Quiet Place. I'm pretty sure everyone knows what A Quiet Place is, but if you don't, it's about like these aliens that come to Earth that can hear you like very well. They have this ability where they can just pick up any sound and they'll hone in on you. Like they will come after you. Um, Here's why I think I would never survive that. Even though they had a pretty decent strategy of like walking on sand to reduce their footstep sounds and trying to, keep everything as quiet as possible, I snore really loud. Like really loud. To the point where I once had, back in high school, I had some friends sleep over and they said that my snoring is the equivalent of like a tractor. I This is their words. A tractor rolling into the living room and just parked an idle. And they said that's exactly that's exactly what my snoring sounds like. A tractor in the living room parked in idle. In college, I did a sleepover at a friend's house, and they said that I do a little silly kind of sleep talk, which is something I didn't used to do, and I didn't know I did that. And I said, "Oh, what was I saying?" And they said, "You weren't saying anything. You were just straight up moaning." What? So yeah, I thought you were jorking it, to be honest. I'm like, nuh-uh. I was moaning in my sleep. As it turns out, that's something I do often now. I didn't do that in high school, but now I do. I moan. I moan in my sleep. So I am a tractor level snoring, moaning sleeper. Okay, in a world like A Quiet Place, I am not gonna survive the first night. I'm not. The moment I go to sleep, they're gonna find me. They're gonna hone in on me. Myself and anyone with me is not gonna make it because of my snoring. But then that made me think in the film A Quiet Place, how are they all still alive? Wouldn't wouldn't snoring give them all away? It's not like snoring is rare. That's a very common thing. And none of them snore? Really? Not even a little bit? What about a sneeze? Right? You sneeze or cough. Any human involuntary sound. How are they alive? That doesn't make sense. And the more I start thinking about it, the more I'm like, wait a minute. Like bugs, crickets, birds. There's no way those aliens got to them all. There's no way those aliens were just like, time to go get some field crickets. Like, even I can't locate field crickets. Their sound bounces off everything. I can imagine one of those creatures out in the field losing its shit trying to find a field cricket because it can't pinpoint where the sound's coming from. But the design of the creature is really cool. I like that the face opens up when it hears a sound. But the more you start to think about A Quiet Place and like how sound works, how it bounces off things, it kind of makes it hard to believe that that alien race would be able to find all of us. In fact, the moment people realize, oh, they they hunt by sound, we know how to get rid of them then. We know what to do. Because they don't have eyes. They can't see anything. That's demonstrated several times in the movie where like the alien is, right there and it can't see them because they're in the water and like their sound is muffled, so the aliens is like, I don't know where you are, even though you're like 5 feet from me. So here's my point. And I hate to do this to everyone, but I'm gonna anyways. In World War Z, my favorite zombie book in World War Z, there is a scene where they were using sound to attract the zombies because in World War Z, zombies are attracted by sound. And there was like one where they had them going off buildings and out windows and off of bridges. They were just leading them to spots where they could just fall over and let gravity do the rest of the work. Why wouldn't that also work in A Quiet Place? Why wouldn't, putting a couple of speakers in a very tall place and just let gravity do their job? Let gravity handle it. I feel like that would be a very easy way to get rid of them. I think using sound against them, which spoilers at the end of A Quiet Place, they use a hearing aid to like mess up their frequency and it like harms them. You mean to tell me, out of all the people who have hearing aids, no one attempted that? I personally feel like they learned pretty early on that these creatures uh, hunt by sound. And no one thought of using loud frequencies. I would also assume that if they were to use a tank against one of these things, that the firing of the tank would permanently destroy them because that's, uh, to my understanding, far louder than a hearing aid. Oh, well, it's at a frequency that we can't hear. You know what else we can't hear? Anything above that frequency. There's certain sounds that are so loud that we can't hear the peak of that. Our eardrums erupt before we can hear the peak of some of those sounds. So, I'm just saying, there we have equipment that is very effective against, things that hunt by sound. The moment you erupt something, that should fix the job. In fact, the having explosions can erupt your blood cells if you're too close to it. So why is the military not using RPGs? Why is the military not using tanks? If these things hunt by sound, that it would be pretty easy to get rid of them, in my opinion. I think the fact that they were able to take over the world, creatures that hunt by sound in a noisy planet like ours, I don't I don't think so. I would assume that it would just lose its mind the moment it drops into New York City. That's the most noisiest city. I would like to imagine one of those creatures just goes into a very public city like New York and just loses its marble. It doesn't know where to go first. It's just surrounded by sound. Of course, there's the idea that it probably is going into a frenzy. So it's not really honing in on a particular sound. It's just going after anything nearby with sound. And most animals do that. Ones like sharks, for example, go into a feeding frenzy where they are no longer aware of what's around them and they just start lashing out at everything. So I assume that's probably their explanation of, oh, well, in New York, a setting like New York, of course they're not going to hone in on a certain sound. They're just kind of like in a frenzy and they're just going to start attacking everything around them. But I still think that it's a little silly that the world government who realizes that they can hunt by sound. Keep in mind, I have not seen the sequels or anything like that, so I don't know what happens later on. I've only seen the first film, and I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence of like, I don't think so. I think our government would utilize sound pretty quickly. Well, oh, these things hunt by sound. Well, we're gonna send them to the ocean. We're gonna put a couple of speakers on a helicopter and go out into the middle of the ocean and have them swim out there. You know what else is noisy? The ocean. The moment that they go into the ocean and they start losing their marbles, and like, whoa, it's so loud down here. It is, by the way. If you ever seen those videos of like people putting microphones into the ocean, it's noisy. It is really loud in there. Though they start tracking something like, what is that? It's just a great white, a great white shark. Like, uh-oh. I don't think you're gonna win. I think that might have an advantage on you. I don't know. I personally like the movie A Quiet Place. I feel like the premise that they would pretty much take over the world as effortlessly as they did is kind of far fetched. But that's just my own opinion. I'm sure that like a lot of people would go, "Oh no, no, those things would definitely take us out." But ignoring the idea that a hearing aid took one out and that a tank wouldn't, I would think that for the benefit of the doubt, if that didn't matter, then some of the people who were still alive should have been dead just from snoring, in my opinion. That there should have been like even less survivors than there were in the film. That's gonna be it for this episode. Thank you everyone for tuning in.